I told you guys yesterday that today we were going to subtract mixed numbers. You've already subtracted, but there was no regrouping and borrowing necessary. Today we're going to see how we borrow and regroup when you have to subtract and that's required. So that's what we're focusing on, mostly just subtracting today. Some of our steps are similar because we always start out the same way. Now, step 1 says if denominators are unlike, find the LCM of each denominator. So that step is consistent. We have to make sure we have the LCM first. So if we look at my problem, I have 5 1/5 minus 3 2/3. I've got to find my LCM first. So I'm going to list out all of my multiples for 5, 10, 15, 20. And then for 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. And I can see that my LCM will be 15. So I'm going to rewrite my new fraction with my LCD of 15. So 3 times what gives me 15? 5. So that means 2 times 5 is going to be 10. And then 5 times what is 15? 3. So 1 times 3 is 3. Okay. So I've got my new mixed numbers set up. My problem is I can't do 3 minus 10 because remember this is a subtraction problem. So I should technically be subtracting 3 minus 10. Okay. So it says we need to perform first. Oh, hold on. I got to make sure I stay with my steps too because I want to make sure that we're going along with my work that I'm doing. So step 2 says convert fractions to equivalent fractions with like denominators. And it has a little reminder. It says remember perform the same operation on top as we do on the bottom. So that was this step right here where we said 5 times 3 is 15. So 1 times 3 is 3. We just did that step. So now I have rewrite the equation. We cannot subtract 3 minus 10. So we're going to regroup. So what that means is I'm going to have to borrow from the 5. Okay. So I have basically 5 3/15. I'm just taking what I have here, 5 and my new fraction, 3/15. And I'm going to break that up because I've got to pull out a whole number. I've got to borrow from the 5 a whole number. So when I do that, it's going to leave me with 4. And I'm going to use 15/15. Why do you think I would use 15/15 as a whole? Oh, gosh. Sorry. I'm trying to like move it on the screen and I have to move the camera too because it's being weird today. Okay. So I had 5 3/15, but I've got to borrow. So I'm borrowing from the 5, just like how I would with whole numbers. You take it down 1. So I'm left with 4. But we typically put the whole number that I borrowed to the next place over. Same concept, but because it's a fraction, I've got to show that whole number as a fraction. Why do you think I used 15/15 and not like 8/8 or something else, Jade?
Because you can subtract 10 from 15.
And because my denominator has to stay consistent, right? My denominators are 15. So I've got to make sure my whole number is also out of 15. So 15/15 represents my one whole, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm out of sorts because I feel like I've got to like actually use a real pen because I'm using my document camera. Okay. So I want to make sure that I now have my fraction part left. I don't want to leave that out. I take this fraction and I move it down here. So I have 3/15 to 3/15. And this 5 is now represented as a 4 and 15/15. Does everybody understand how I broke it apart?
Yes.
Okay. I don't want to move on unless we are all on the same page because this part, it can be confusing if we're not moving at the same, if we're not moving together. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show 4 plus this 15 plus 3, which gives me 18. So I'm going to put 18 here, and 15 is still my denominator, okay?
I understand that.
So I'm going to go back and I'm going to explain one more time. This 5 I had to borrow from. I regrouped it as 4 wholes, and this 15/15ths is together making that 5. That's how I broke up my 5. I still have 3/15ths over here. But now I can combine these two because I've got to add that whole number that I borrowed, that I took out of 5, and I'm going to add it to the 3/15. So that makes it now 18/15. So now I can actually rewrite this and I can subtract it. So this is what it's going to look like after I rewrite my problem. I'll have 4 and 18/15 minus, ooh, that's really big, minus 3 and 10/15. Everybody with me so far? Okay. Now I will solve, and I'm just going to subtract 4 minus 3, which is 1. Now I'm going to subtract 18 minus 10, which is 8, and 15 stays the same. And it cannot be simplified. So my final answer is just 1 and 8/15. Okay, we're going to do some practice with this. I don't mind if you and you can use a buddy today. Y'all can work together.